Good evening, everyone. Happy to see so many of you on this wonderful Saturday evening. A very, very warm welcome to all of you to today's webinar on mindfulness and compassion in psychotherapy. It's hosted by Just Being Center. We are delighted to have you with us in this meaningful exploration into the heart of therapeutic presence. It's a great pleasure to welcome our speaker for this evening, Sandy Andrade, who is the founder director of Just Being Center and who's also a pioneer in integrating mindfulness and compassion into therapeutic work. Sandy enjoys bringing together seemingly diverse threads from various domains and weaving it together in a holistic approach to psychotherapy. A very, very warm welcome to you, Sandy. We hope that this session offers you valuable reflections and it brings a renewed sense of connection with yourself and, of course, with others. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here today. And we will look forward to a very nourishing experience together. Over to you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you, Gayatri, and welcome everyone. And if you can, it would be nice if you could put on your videos so we can have interaction and just talking with each other. So while I'll be presenting on mindfulness and compassion in psychotherapy and looking at some key points, I would also invite you at any point of time, if there are questions that come up for you, some reflections, maybe even some client sessions, we can look at that and you can just put it in the chat that you have a question and we can take a pause and look at that and then continue. Okay. So I'll just share, just open my PPT. So we're really looking at Just Being, we offer two courses. One is a one-year course in mindfulness-based counseling, which is really open to people from all backgrounds. So it really has at the base of what is it to come from the viewpoint of mindfulness into a listening or holding space. And the other is the 2-year presence-oriented psychotherapy. And these are what we'll be discussing today, are very key components of these two programs. But today's webinar is also, opening up a much broader canvas of looking at mindfulness-based interventions. What's at the heart of mindfulness-based interventions? And what happens when we bring mindfulness and compassion into therapy? How does it change the way we look at therapy, what happens in the therapeutic process, and therefore what is then the view that we take even towards ourselves and our clients? So a little bit about my own journey with mindfulness and presence. Like Gayatri shared, that this has been a very key area for me for many, many years, starting with my own practice in Vipassana. And really from that personal practice, really seeing how much I myself benefited and how I encountered myself and my experiences, and really wanting to find that of how to bring that in into the therapeutic space. Because people coming for therapy are not really coming to a meditation teacher, right? Or you can go to somebody else for understanding maybe Buddhist philosophy, understanding who they are at a larger metaphysical level. But what they're coming for in therapy probably is something that they are facing in their lives, or they are feeling a little are troubled with, and they need that support in navigating that. So, therefore, it's really important to see really what is the meeting point between the psychological and the the wisdom traditions, right? Because mindfulness is coming from the wisdom traditions. There is a lot of work done in neuroscience around it, which is why it's on the map. Uh, but it's really, this was my attempt as well as really discovering what is that meeting place. And so in that discovery, I also did a lot of in-depth trainings in various aspects and facets, like whether it was somatic psychology, attachment work, subtle body, trauma-based approaches, mindfulness itself, like MBCT, and really to come from this point of view of seeing the essence of the what the practice offered, the essence of it really coming forth um, in the in therapy. And that really led me to develop this presence-oriented psychotherapy therapeutic approach, where all these threads are held together. And if we have time, we'll speak a little more about that. So, so what's happening when mindfulness is the core practice in psychotherapy? Right. So when we're looking at mindfulness as a practice, we're looking at awareness as the key. So it's and where we bring our attention to internal, external objects, whether it's our breath, our body, our thoughts, our emotions, sensations, sounds, the external stimuli, just with a sense of openness, kindness, and curiosity. And these are very important ingredients in the practice, um, which, as we encounter our own mind, we find that it is not so simple to be open and kind and curious. And we are more into fixing and judgment, um, yeah, and trying to put everything into a box and analyzing it. So, mindfulness develops our capacity to go beyond narratives, to explore other aspects of our mind that are also available. And when we do come into the practice of mindfulness, it really is a pathway into presence. And what we mean by presence is just this very unconditioned state of being that we can touch into, that has a sense of okayness and a sense of wholeness, irrespective of what is it that we are encountering. So, with this, maybe we can just start with a little bit of practice, uh, because again, mindfulness is not so much of saying what it is about or understanding it intellectually, but really coming into an inner sensing and feeling and knowing through our own experience what is it that we encounter in our own body mind. So, just inviting maybe everyone that maybe we can just take some time to Um, just feel your feet on the ground. We just do a very simple practice as we begin. Orient to ourselves and just sensing the contact of our feet to the ground, the contact of the body to our seat. Just allowing the body mind to just rest in this contact. Sensing into our legs, sensing into our hands, sensing into the back, the shoulders, sensing the back of the neck and head, sensing into the face, throat, sensing into the heart space, the chest, the area of the chest. Perhaps just sensing the breath there. Sensing the breath in the abdomen as well. Just the sensations of breathing. As our attention rests on the breath, just acknowledging everything also that is arising without pushing it away or following. Just a simple acknowledgement and just letting everything be just as is. Just opening up to the space around, just aware of the space around, where the sounds, and aware of the visual field. And if your eyes are closed, you can slowly open your eyes. Just check in with yourself. What are you present to? And maybe some of us can just offer some of our responses. What is it that we noticed or observed in this just a few minutes of just sitting with the body, breath? Let's see whether we get a sense of what is mindfulness really about. Anyone like to just offer what they noticed in your own sitting, or what's here for you? So, so Ria shares, could consciously feel my heartbeat louder than normal. Okay. And Vivek shares that there's an appreciation of stillness underlying, Suryatapa calmness, and could observe thoughts coming and going through the practice. Yes, and that's right. We can have all of these. We can come in touch with just what we are, what is going on in our body mind, and we become aware of it. Um, yeah, and just these few examples actually really gives us a sense. Yeah, sometimes we have a sense of um, that maybe we felt okay, but as we bring our inner attention, then we feel maybe a sense of restlessness, or we encounter a sense of anxiety or worry. And that can happen in the practice of mindfulness because we're just becoming aware of what's going on. And otherwise, this anxiety and this restlessness, or and whatever was there, was more in the background, still influencing our decisions, our perceptions, and we are not aware of it. So, what the practice does is brings it to the foreground where we can actually see our experience. And in that seeing of the experience, it gives us a choice point of how we want to be with that experience now that it is here. Um, we can at other times also feel the sense of calmness, stillness, right? Um, and and that's fine too. And over here, I think it's really important to kind of see that mindfulness practice is not necessarily a practice that leads to feeling calm. In fact, as we practice more and we go more into the depth of the practice, it does bring up our underlying patterns, our underlying imprints. It brings it to the foreground. So we also practice that, therefore, mindfulness cannot be, just given that everyone practice it in this way or this way. It has to be modified, and it has to um go with what the person is, the orientation of the person and what they are encountering. And accordingly, the practice needs to be modified. So if there's too much of agitation coming up, if I just bring attention to the breath or body, right? Maybe my body doesn't feel safe to rest my attention in. And so there might be a few things that might be needed before that. And or I can anchor my attention with with maybe something like sound and start with that, or something external, uh, so that slowly I build this capacity of really coming in and touching into my experience more directly, which is where mindfulness would go. It would go into touching our experiences more directly. There's another in the chat, the other observations that have come is that I could observe thoughts coming and going through practice. And that's really an important kind of like phenomenon. Otherwise, we are kind of just gripped by the thoughts. We don't know when we've gone completely immersed in a thought loop, right? And before we know it, something that has just triggered us that can really spiral. And for our this is especially for us and also for our clients. You can see how much impact that would have for somebody with depression or anxiety, where they are constantly in that thought cycle, and how the practice of mindfulness, can really support that stepping back and be able to look at this and say, oh, okay, I can just see the arising and passing of thoughts, of course, with practice, right? Um, and this other, um, you know, aspect that is shared, that of feeling maybe heaviness in the limbs, like someone shared, and at the same time feeling calm. So I can hold both. I can hold all of my experiences. All of my experiences are allowed, and there is that underlying. Yeah. And therefore, I say that, therefore, mindfulness is really the pathway to presence. Okay. Um, I'd like to kind of really highlight now, this is really something that moves across mindfulness based interventions like MBCT, MBSR, ACT, even ACT kind of works in the similar way. In DBT, you have some aspects of mindfulness that come in. Um, Not all of DBT is from the framework of mindfulness practice. So, but in all mindfulness based interventions, including presence oriented psychotherapy, underlying what we are really looking at as getting familiar with our experience, our patterns, and then really looking at this whole cycle of thoughts, feelings, sensations. And otherwise, whenever we encounter an experience, um, let's say I got triggered, maybe somebody has said something, something hurtful, which I have perceived as hurtful. I am going to kind of maybe I start to feel something or sense something in the body, or I may have some thoughts about it, right? And um, and otherwise, this experience of, oh, this person has been unkind to me, everyone's unkind to me, and it can really go into that, can become a very solid, tight experience, right? And so when we are bringing mindful awareness to this experience, we are saying, okay, so I am triggered. What is it that I notice? in myself. What is it that I notice in the body? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? What are my sensations? And we keep doing this as a practice, right? Pausing, noticing, what am I experiencing in this moment? And then having a way to really allow it without changing it, without shifting it. And when we come with our experience and really allow our experience, right? Um, then there is a sense of breaking this kind of very solid experience and making it a little looser. So there's more space that gets created within our thoughts and our feelings and our sensations. And this is the main key when we are talking about um mindfulness based interventions. This is where the transformative work really happens. We notice a thought and then we say, okay, what am I feeling and sensing in the body? And this remaining with the feeling sensation in the body is really at the core, because just think of it in terms of, let's say, think of an experience where you've got triggered. It doesn't have to be a big trigger. Maybe you just got annoyed, or, yeah, or maybe somebody said something to you. Where do we feel this, the reaction? Where can we catch it first? Maybe through habit, we start to notice the thoughts. But even before thoughts are arising, there is a certain feeling sensation that is generated in the body. And that feeling sensation is linked to previous experiences that we've had around this, our past conditioning, our past experiences, our past beliefs. And that is what we are experiencing in this moment. And then we are kind of superimposing that on what we are encountering now. And this is a constant process that is happening, which we then begin to see. We begin to come in touch with it. And, and the main thing here is, in just allowing, there is some more space created for this experience within the thoughts, within the feelings, within the sensations. Okay. I don't know whether there are any, yeah, any questions around this, or, yeah, from your own experience, or a bit also client experiences. And just to complete that, we can just see it's really about finding that space between thoughts, recognizing that space, resting in that space, and then responding from that space, from that gap that has got created, that is there. Yeah. So experience is not a continuous cycle. It keeps changing, it keeps evolving. And so we're really touching into the Buddhist principles, because mindfulness does come from Buddhist philosophy and psychology, and it is drawing from there. And so, three principles that are also there across mindfulness based interventions. One is the principle of impermanence, right? That all phenomena is impermanent. Um, and we start to notice that changing nature of experience. Very linked to that is that we mistaken this experience that can be very impermanent, we mistaken it as permanent, as solidified. right? And so in the whole process, when we are bringing mindfulness and presence into therapy, we are looking at with it without touching it and without adding more narrative to the experience. So then we are really with the base experience of how it has come about through our conditioning, and we can really touch into the deeper layers from where this experience has really come into existence and open that up a bit. Mhm. So Pema Chodron, who is a Buddhist teacher, yeah, shares that there is a teaching that says that behind all hardening and tightening and rigidity of the heart, there's always fear. But if you touch fear, behind fear, there is a soft spot. And if you touch that soft spot, you find the vast blue sky. You find that which is ineffable, ungraspable, and unbiased, that which can support and awaken us at any time. I was also, talking about the principles from Buddhist psychology that really influence the work in therapy. One is that of impermanence. The other is this that there is a, just by virtue of being human and irrespective of our conditioning, there is a general underlying dissatisfaction or an unsatisfactoriness that is there, which is in the background. And that unsatisfactoriness really kind of puts us into maybe a sense of doing more, achieving, trying to get more, be more. Um, and that is also what we encounter then through the practice of mindfulness. Some parts of us that are dissatisfied, some parts of us that are self critical, some parts of us that are very judgmental of who we are and who we need to be. That doesn't allow us to rest in ourselves, in just how we are, and be okay in our own skin. And as we touch into this dissatisfaction, we also touch into these principles of how we want to grasp at our experiences and hold them, or how we want to just push it away. And this aversion, this wanting to push away, especially unpleasant experiences, is another very key component of mindfulness based interventions, where we're really developing a capacity, our own capacity, and the capacity in our clients to be able to be with these unpleasant sensations and feelings. Not try to move away from it or try to fix it, but it is a graduated step by step process. And one good thing when we are practicing mindfulness as a practitioner, which we do need to if we are bringing mindfulness into therapy, because we really need to understand the inner mechanism of it in our own body mind and how we encounter it and how we navigate it, what supports, what doesn't support. We know that it might take maybe a few more steps, like of feeling resourced or feeling safe in the therapeutic relationship, to be able to really encounter experiences just as they are, especially the aversive experiences. Mhm. And so impermanence, the dissatisfaction, along with that, the attachment, aversion, and then the whole principle of non-self, of seeing ourselves as a very fixed entity, solidified, rarefied, and loosening this kind of holding through, not with just an intellectual understanding of that, but through meeting our experiences just as is. And in that very encounter, what we hold as solid starts to loosen up, starts to feel a little more spacious. Okay. So we'll see if there is anything. Yeah, someone's sharing that sometimes resting in the space can be very difficult. Yes, of course. The whole premise of mindfulness based intervention, especially from as a therapist, as a practitioner, is really shifting from kind of moving into doing, fixing the client, trying to, move the client from their state to really just being with the client. Yeah. And that requires the capacity for the practitioner, not so much for the client, for the practitioner to feel grounded, rooted, and a little spacious with whatever they are encountering. And in so doing, the, the client also encounters that settling. Now, it is not so simple to just rest in the space. Otherwise, we don't need to do so much of practice. We can just kind of sit and be. But whenever we try to do that, we encounter this kind of the flurry and the fury of the mind and our experiences. And so, to begin with, in mindfulness practice, we begin with really being with some anchor. These anchors can be the breath, the body, just simple grounding, uh, sounds, sight. And it can also be something external because, let's say, if there are traumatic imprints, it's hard to just be with the body without feeling dysregulated. So maybe something external like working with clay or working with something with the hands, where that through touch and through feeling and sensing, I can be present to myself and to my experience. We'll take a pause here and see if there's something we want to explore. Okay. So maybe we can just take a pause with, yeah, we'll come to non-self in therapy. Sakshi says, when I invite groundedness, I usually find myself bringing an unpopular space for the client. A major part of the work as a practitioner is being okay to be that person who is inviting this And I do agree with you, Sakshi, because it would need us to practice this for ourselves. So when we are inviting the client into any kind of practice or simply being with their experience, then we need to feel grounded in ourselves. Yeah. So in our trainings, we kind of like hold this dual awareness and practice holding a dual awareness of some part of our attention with the client and also some part of our attention within ourselves. So we are sensing our own body, we are sensing what's arising in us, what's happening in the space as the client is encountering their experience. And we are really working with in resonance and with that sense of resonance and attunement with the client. Yeah. So, yeah, Vivek says, can you explain curiosity and its purpose? Yeah. When I already start as a therapist or a client from a premise that I know this, I cannot see more than what I think I know. And so then our experience becomes very quite fixated, quite solidified, categorized. And so when I shift that within myself of, okay, I'm noticing maybe this sense of judgment or rigidity or a strong belief here, right? How can I know this experience a little bit more? And when we bring in that curiosity, we are really bringing in that sense of, I don't know. Let me find out. Let me let me move moment to moment with what I'm experiencing and encountering and see what unfolds. When we do that, we allow for the deeper layers of our body mind, our deeper intelligence and wisdom to really come forth. So it's really opening the door for that. Yeah, Vidya asks, can you tell about allowing experience? Okay, so let's do a little practice. And take a minute to again just come into a sense of grounding, just sensing the contact of your feet to the ground, or just simply sensing the weight of your body against the seat. Just in this moment, just see, what are you present to? Just be curious about that. What are the thoughts? And feelings? Some sensations in the body. Perhaps you can just bring attention to your breath. Breath as a way of just being with and accompany whatever you're encountering right now. Not touching the thought by going with it or pushing it away. Let it be just as is. And just ask yourself as you're having this thought, what are you sensing, feeling in the body? And just be with that feeling sensation in the body. Feels too much or too overwhelming, you can just let your hand rest there just as a sense of support. Just being with the feeling sensation in the body, just as is. Whatever it is, in whatever we are encountering, we can just give it some more space by just bringing attention also to the whole body. Okay. And so, with this question of how can we allow experience? And this is the way we allow experience by being with this experience at the feeling sensation in the body. So I don't know whether Vidya is still here. Yeah. Yes. And I hope you have that sense of what it means to allow experience. You know, very often I meet many people who are quite self-aware and they are aware of what's happening within them, and even clients, and they often say that I'm, allowing my experience. But what they mean by the allowing of the experience is they are going into the narrative and, analyzing it, rehashing it, thinking about it. And that's just going to get into more of a loop. So, from a mindfulness perspective, when we say that we are allowing our experience, we are really shifting to being with that experience at the feeling sensation level. So that's the allowing that happens, and really including the narrative, but not being in the narrative. So any other questions or applications? So this sense um, the sense of someone asked a question about the spaciousness or the sense of presence. This is that sense of presence. We are encountering our experience just as is and developing a capacity, and also helping our clients develop a capacity to be with their experience in a moment to moment way with what they are encountering. And whatever they are encountering, we will meet with, parts within us that are protective, that are holding, and that's all right. That's a good thing. It doesn't feel pleasant. Um, but when we are encountering that with a sense of safety, and the safety in the relational space held by the therapist, then we are encountering and able to encounter that rigidity, the fear, the whatever it is, that tightening, that holding that there is. And as we encounter it, that kind of like opens up, that kind of shifts. And we come in touch with our natural sense of ourself, our deep sense of presence. And that's why I said mindfulness is really the pathway to presence. Yeah. So, what is presence? It's that ever present, more unconditioned, spacious, less identified sense of self, but with the body as the reference point. Because we want to be present in the here and now, not in this, spaced out way. And so, really, the markers of presence is that we really have an embodied sense of grounding. We feel a sense of intimacy and connection, and a sense of spaciousness at all time. So, inherent in mindfulness is also that compassion arises naturally. The heart opens up naturally. And when we encounter the heart opening up, we will encounter all those barriers that keeps and has kept our heart closed. We will encounter our conditioning. And again, that's a good thing, because it gives it that time and space to really meet it, and meet what hasn't been met before, to meet it here and now in the therapeutic space that is held with safety and groundedness, because the therapist is also grounded and present and in presence. So, and really speaking, and that's what we also kind of teach in the presence oriented course. And when I say teach, it's really encountering ourselves more fully, and through practice, and encountering what is it that we encounter in the relational space as well. And these are really the elements of effective therapy, irrespective of orientation, irrespective of approach, that we are really looking at the presence of the therapist, the presence in the relational space, and the presence of the client. And whatever modality you are practicing, when you bring mindfulness and presence in, it really shifts how we are seeing it, how we are doing it. Right. So, And it really shifts from where we are engaging with the tools and techniques that we have been trained to. So, what is mindfulness and presence oriented psychotherapy? We are really working from this orientation of presence for the practitioner first. And then knowing that and knowing how to inhabit that, also being able to support the client in terms of accessing that. So, presence is our capacity to be there for the other from a sense of spaciousness and warmth. And it's also drawing from many streams and holds it together because, as you know, it's not a one size fits all. So, as we are encountering this client may need other tools, other ways, maybe more orienting in the body, more somatic work, maybe more attachment work, maybe more work at the energetic level, so that they can really rest in themselves. You know, the question that had come earlier, right? And feel at home in themselves. And in some way, that's what mindfulness and presence oriented work does, is that uh, it helps the client come back home with a sense of home in themselves and feel okay as they are encountering and navigating their life and with things that come up for them. So we are really drawing from the wisdom traditions, from psychodynamic, cognitive, somatic, uh, trauma informed, and energy psychology. And it builds from the research in neuroscience and interpersonal neurobiology. So, so it can be practiced as a modality in by itself, but it can also be added to anything else that we are practicing. Now, this is key. This you will find it also in, you won't find it in um, modalities like MBCT or MBSR. Those are more structured programs with a lot of formal mindfulness practice for clients. But you will find a similarity with the way acceptance commitment therapy is oriented, because then we are really, and even the presence oriented psychotherapy is looking at the process, right? So, really being with the client in a moment to moment way. With whatever they are coming with, however they are coming with, whatever they are encountering, really meeting that, and then in a step by step way, supporting the client to come into their feeling sensation with whatever they are experiencing. And so the practitioner is an embodied presence and deeply attuned to the client and supporting the client's presence in a variety of ways. Yeah, it requires many different ways in which we can support. So it's a very alive and fluid process, and the therapist and client, they work in a moment to moment way. So so this is really important for the therapist then to really come from a space of not knowing and be willing to discover and find out and let the wisdom from the client, uh, let that be the guide. Yeah, so we're really making space for that and really being able to listen to that. Um, and that is how the process is unfolding. So there's a lot of spaciousness and tenderness and a greater sense of embodiment for the client. So all of mindfulness based interventions is it's also working at the intersection of psychology, neurobiology, and contemplative practice. And the the one of the really big impacts of neuroscience and mindfulness is that it has really shown that there are structural and functional changes in brain structures. Even with, a few weeks of consistent mindfulness practice, there are some changes that happen. And very often, that one big change that happens is in terms of um, the the ability to be able to have that internal sensing of experience, the interoception, being able to sense from the body, sense internally what is our experience like. Um, And the other big one is that in terms of emotional regulation, of how the activity in the amygdala really kind of slows down with mindfulness practice, and our ability to be able to look at phenomena then freshly, that increases, because the links to the prefrontal cortex also increase, right? So it's a whole brain kind of involved, whole body, brain, mind, a kind of the ability to respond. Yeah. And also the big thing that it also neuroscience lends us with is the neuroplasticity of the brain, that uh, patterns can change, deeply held imprints can shift, because there is a constant change that is happening. But for that constant change to happen, you need the practice and repetition and the holding that sometimes is needed for us to even encounter our experience. Another big one from neuroscience is the default mode network, which is just structures in the brain that kind of operate together. And what it has shown, that meditation reduces the activity in the default mode network. Now, what's happening when the default mode network is like really on is that, like, when you're just sitting and maybe doing nothing, and that is why resting in doing nothing is hard, because the mind naturally wanders, right? And often when this mind wandering is happening, there's often rumination that is taking place, or worry about the future. And when we practice mindfulness, this the activity in the default mode network that reduces, which means rumination decreases, which means worry about the future decreases, and we are more fully present with what we are encountering here and now, and more engaged with life. So, so that's a little bit about the impact and its huge impact of neuroscience, which is why mindfulness has become pretty mainstream in the field of psychology and therapy. Another big one is of interpersonal neurobiology, um, which is really looking at how it's a constant interaction. Our sense of self is constantly forming, and this it's the interaction of our brains, body, relationships, giving rise all the more to our sense of self and the self-referencing. So it's constantly changing. So the question that someone had asked, so to say a little bit more about non-self, non-self doesn't mean that we don't have a sense of self or a sense of I, but just the sense of I, we can see it as more loosely, that is more lighter, and we can see it as changing and evolving, right? Okay. So maybe we can just stop with that and see if there are any questions or comments. Yeah, so Vivek shares that with this theme of mindfulness and compassion, yeah, and the evolution of, yeah, just this dry sort of awareness to a loving and nurturing awareness, which feels like presence. And that is really the hallmark of the practice. Like it has been said that mindfulness and compassion, like two wings of the bird, you need to, there needs to be both of it. And so that development in the therapeutic relationship, the development of this, developing an inner sense of kindness and inner sense of self compassion, being able to meet, befriend our experience, that becomes a very critical part. And often, when we are with clients, when we are with ourselves, we often encounter how we are not so kind to ourselves. And so just coming into that, a more heart-based inner relationship, you know, that's really the um, where mindfulness takes us. So maybe with that, we can just take some questions and just a little bit about the course that's we are starting in August. But of course, even if you're not joining the course, you can join the pre-program, the 40-day mindfulness practice that we're going to start in June. And if there are any more questions, you can visit the website about the course. But we can look at questions around the topic for today right now. Uh, yeah. So someone's asking whether we can share the PDF file of the text. The recording will be shared, I think. I can check with Gayatri, but I don't know whether we share the
Would be, yes, Sandy, we'll be
PDF.
sharing the recording on Monday.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
all the participants. Yeah.
yeah. So that you'll have access to. So maybe we can just take some time to maybe settle in once more, just see what's here. As we participated in this webinar, uh, maybe something that resonates with us. It doesn't have to be a question, maybe a feeling that arises or a curiosity. Maybe something that you would like to add. Maybe you can just unmute and share that, or just put it in the chat. Or maybe we can bring this to a close. You can take some time to read each other's comments, reflections, and just what's here for you.
Hi, Sandy.
Yeah, Shreya.
Hi. So, I come from a cognitive behavioral therapy approach,
Hmm.
and a lot of times I just use that to find where that discomfort is. The because a lot of it is around that, and then I try to create that kind of space for it. So I wanted to also understand if CPT has any integrative way with mindfulness as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, the MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy,
Right.
that's really coming from the cognitive stream. Even, in fact, even acceptance commitment therapy is coming from the same cognitive therapies, you know, the next wave of them. So, but the moment, like I said, you bring in something like mindfulness, just because of its nature, right? Uh, like in normal CBT, you would bring an awareness to thoughts. That's common, right? To the thoughts, to the beliefs. So you would help the client to kind of see that, and then you might look at replacing that thought or that belief. You know, in when you bring in mindfulness, that we don't do. So we look at this thought or this belief that is underlying, and very often that thought and belief, because it's very linked, all these are linked, the belief, the thoughts, the feeling, sensation, it's all linked. It's all there in that experience. So the moment we are bringing mindfulness and we are not shifting from one belief to another belief, we are not kind of like changing that. We are just letting the thoughts and the beliefs just be, not touching it, you know, not going with it, not arguing with it, but having another location from where we can see this thought, which is the feeling sensation in the body. So then we're really shifting the location of doing that. Now, where the behavioral aspects come in, and very often, when we are working with clients that come with clinical conditions, there might be some behavioral aspects that we do need to bring in. And where we work on it is not so much from the point of view of fixing, but what is the movement that wants to happen. So very often drawing from acceptance commitment therapy, the the question, like they have six areas or six processes, and one of those areas is working with the value direction. So really asking the client, like, what is their life, what is the life they envision for themselves, and whether there is anxiety or not, how willing would they be to take those few steps towards the life that they would want, rather than spending the energy of pushing away the life they don't want or the experiences they don't want. So that's so holding both the movement towards something, but also the acceptance of how I'm feeling and thinking. And I don't need to particularly change that, shift that, and can just allow that while also moving and creating that behavioral change. So, when it is required to bring about that behavioral change, that's the way we would work with it. Yeah.
Right.
But Shreya, the important bit is the like, how is the therapist viewing the client? How is the therapist viewing this phenomena that the client is coming with? What is their like? How are they viewing the client's experience? And so it's really important where the therapist develops this capacity over a period of time to, and through their own mindfulness practice, of not seeing what the client is encountering as something faulty. That it is the very intelligence within that person that is leading to some kind of coping mechanisms. And in discovering the underlying, need that it is fulfilling, we come in touch with, more closer to the core um, of deeper aspects of who the client is, or deeper aspects of presence. Thank you for your questions, Shreya. We'll see if there's anything else, or if there's any other sharing that we wish to have as we bring this to a close. Right. Then maybe we'll end with a little practice, practice of metta, of loving kindness, of just wishing well for each other and for ourselves as we bring this to a close. So once more, just orienting your attention just to a sense of grounding. Perhaps just anchoring in the breath for a while. And recognizing and acknowledging this interest in exploring mindfulness. Wishing well for yourself, for this person sitting here. Wishing well for each other. As we close, we can, if we can put on our video so we can see each other, wish each other well. Just recognizing this shared space that we've all come into and enriched. All right. So thank you all for being here and coming. And if there is anything more, and you can always write to us. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.